Pharma stocks of late have been under pressure. Pharma companies are bearing the brunt of high input pressures here, and then US generic prices have not stabilized. Let's take that conversation forward with Vaidheesh. Vaidheesh, former Vice President Southeast Asia with GSK Pharma, and then we've also got Vishal Manchanda, Senior Research Analyst with Nirmal Bang Securities. Vaidheesh, good to have you back. Thank you for joining us. Big pharma companies are now feeling the heat. Some companies are claiming it's because of generic input pressure. Some are claiming this is COVID write-off. Net, there is a challenging time for the pharma sector per se.
Yeah. So the first and foremost, I think definitely there is a pressure, profit pressure. However, what I would say is that from point of view of consumption, I don't think there is so much of pressure. It is purely based on input costs, freight, as you rightly mentioned, and also from the US markets, the pricing pressure is also pretty high right now because there are some players who are dropping down prices and it's creating a bit of pricing war out there. So that's putting a lot of pressure on some of the big pharma companies. However, I don't see that happening as we move forward, but right now they're under pressure.
Vishal, hi there, good morning. So would you concur with the same that as of now, there's no pressure when it comes to the overall consumption? It's more input cost related. Do you think that even when we see, for a case in point, Divi's Laboratories, they did acknowledge that there is pricing pressure when it comes to generics. Is that going to be a pain point? And question is that something that they can tide over soon?
So for sure there is, so I think it's a mix of both pricing pressure in the US and raw material inflation also. So I think with both these things coming in simultaneously, there's a bit more pressure than one would have wanted to see in the earnings. So I think the raw material inflation pressure is temporary. So we should see the raw material inflation pressure going away, maybe a few more quarters. But when it comes to the US generic pricing pressure, it's a bit more unpredictable in terms of the timing. But for sure, this is not something that's going to stay forever because right now, if we look at the space in the US, we are probably at a juncture wherein Indian companies are also getting the squeeze. So they are either making losses on products. Their ROCs for the US business would probably be in the high single digit range or maybe in the low single digit range for some companies. So for sure, there is a cyclical upturn expected. But not sure whether it is a quarter away or 2 quarters away. When is the question is the time.
Okay, yes, indeed, that needs to be monitored. And Mr. Vaidheesh, I just wanted to understand what the outlook is when it comes to USFDA inspections. They have started coming down hard and fast. Do you expect some positive approvals as well to kick in? Do you think that this is as well some sort of an issue that's looming large when it comes to the entire pharmaceutical sector?
Well, I think because due to COVID, a lot of inspection hasn't happened, right? So I think it's time that, as part of the routine inspection, the USFDA started. I don't think one should worry too much about this inspection. Inspection is very routine stuff. Obviously they have to make sure the qualities are maintained. I wouldn't be too worried about many of our Indian companies, top companies, they all have learned a lot. And I'm not expecting any big negative surprises of this inspection. I'm not too worried about that.
The grain of the truth here is that the US generic pricing has been under pressure. Earlier it was consolidation between the insurance companies. Now there is this entire commodity issue which is coming up. US market, with the exception of, let's say, Sun Pharma or to some extent Cipla, all the other companies are suffering. Why is that? I mean, this US generic space was supposed to be the jackpot discovery moment for Indian pharma companies, but that's not true. Vaidheesh, the question was for you.
Okay. So, first and foremost, we need to recognize the fact The US healthcare system is spending, they are not cutting down on spending. It's about almost 3 to 5% increase. That's the kind of estimate they're talking about. What's happening is that there is a lot of new therapies that are coming in. Gene therapies, they're all pretty expensive. Somebody has to pay for it. So what is going to happen is that there is going to be a pressure on well accepted generic therapies, branded therapies. That's going to come under pressure. Now, there are companies, Indian companies, that have done a good job of getting a good portfolio of therapies where the pricing pressure is not going to be there. But there are large number of companies who have standard stuff therapy. They are going to come under pressure. And I don't think the pressure can go away immediately. That pressure is going to be there. Smartness is in getting new ANDAs, which is what some of the companies are doing a good job in that. And also having a differentiated portfolios. The companies which are having a differentiated portfolio, they are not going to come under so much of pricing pressure. But the pricing pressure will remain. As you know, that 7-year cycle typically happens when the pricing goes down and then it comes back. I don't think we are anywhere near the 7-year end. We are very much in the generic pricing pressure will be there.
Vishal, how do you see companies which in a sense were highly dependent on the COVID portfolio moving? You know, for example, it was DRL or Cipla or a Natco. They had individual components or products which in a sense were part of what could be called as a COVID portfolio. Now the need and the demand and the pricing for that particular product line is has completely vanished.
Right. So I think among the names, Cipla is the one that's the most exposed to COVID sales. I think DRL to an extent, Cadila to an extent are other names exposed to COVID products. So I think it is a bit, while we are assuming COVID has gone away, but there's a fair chance it might come back and we might need those basic medications. If not, so there's I think in COVID, so what to the example here is the H1N1 flu, which came in the US in the 2000 decade. So that still persists there. So I think viruses continue to exist and they'll probably find their way in some form or the other. So my sense is COVID would persist. We might still need some basic medication, but there will be some, but sales would taper off for sure from where it is today, maybe 50% or 70%, but that would taper off. So I think that's something we'll have to see in FY23, how much they taper off from where they are today.
So Vishal, if you just had to do like a complete scan of the entire space, where is it that you would be overweight on? Would it be generic, the complex drugs, companies with a high India-centric business? What kind of portfolio of companies do you think you would look at?
So India-centric businesses is the most, so India is the most attractive high ROC business in the pharma space. But
seem to have snapped that connection. But Mr. Vaidheesh, let me come to you in terms of the overall R&D spends, because that has been escalating, be it across biotech investments and across the board. Do you believe that we are going to see a lot more thrust on this front?
Well, I agree with you that as a pharma industry, we have not been investing quite a bit on the so-called R&D. That our R&D is not the same R&D as what you see in the United States. This is more to do with the new drug formulations or dealing with the complex generics. I would definitely think at least that big pharma in India, their R&D spend will go up. You have seen Glenmark has been spending a lot, and similarly other big companies. It has to go up. You don't have much choice because there is a patent cliff is coming up in 2023. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to participate. So I see that during that time, you need a good amount of spend on R&D at this point, to make sure that we are ready to capture that opportunity.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for breaking it down for us and walking us through the outlook of the entire pharmaceutical sector.